First of all, the Scarlets game, was that just a bad day at the office for yourselves?
Yeah, it was a bad day. I think it was strange circumstances in terms of the turnaround between the 2 weeks and how effective we were against Ulster, really, and felt perhaps job done. It's not something that you're training, you're doing your work, that we thought was a bad week per se, but perhaps you reflect on certain things and think, okay, yeah, perhaps we weren't in the right place, mentally to perform that day. But and I think we've all acknowledged, we've fallen over the line, but over the course of the 22 games, we've got over the line. And having done that, we're in a real good place now to go and play knockout rugby. How would you sum the last period of the campaign since that game out in Italy against Treviso? Yeah, strange old period, and no doubt disappointing in a couple of performances. People do focus on the derby games, but look at the games as a whole. I think we've got to take some learning from how loose we were in the Stade and the Cardiff games in particular, in the Principality. I think there's aspects of our game to like around the Ulster-Leinster games in particular. We really manned up down the Liberty and perhaps played a game that was efficient and knew that we could take a game to the last 20 and understand again to a sort of time of the season where it's not about being all singing or dancing, and we haven't always got that balance right over the last 6 weeks or so. But we feel those two games in particular, we weren't far off. Scarlet's game, even at 10-9, we're trying to build a game to build set piece in the opposition half, but ultimately we only had 3 and only 2 we won in terms of their half, and their 2 tries we scored from. So we've shown that if and where we can get field position, we can be certainly an efficient side, and I think that is paramount to play Munster this week, because the opposite is true. You give them field position and dominance, they're physically pretty imposing. Gaining momentum can be so important, getting on a run. When you've had a run like yourselves in that period, is it inevitable that confidence takes a slight knock? You second guess things, but actually sometimes you reflect on certain things. You have some good one-to-one chats, and I think sometimes you can bring aspects of technical and tactical to the fore that are really important when you get to this stage of the season. Like I said, and that's really important about framing a game that's got 23 players all understanding where and how we've got to play the game more efficiently around going away from home, doing the job. There's a lot of things that underpin that around you work in your own half, your kicking game, your set piece game. But by working together, players and coaches, we feel we've done a lot of that over the last couple of weeks. We've needed to, but we've put ourselves, with the sort of motivation of a semi, in a real good place to perform this week. It might seem an obvious question, but how missed has someone like Alan Wynne been in that time? Yeah, he has, in terms of as a player himself. There's another sort of galvanising force and momentum on the field around our carrying game and our physicality around the contact area. He sort of obviously applies himself there and brings others to the fore around that area, and physically we've been off in a couple of those games. But there's also the strands of the game, the sort of leadership. You're 10-9 up in the Scarlets, and then you probably go chasing a couple of things, you give a couple of scores away, and you think you've got to perhaps make up for it, and then things get a little bit more desperate. He's the man who can sometimes put his foot on the ball, and bring people to account and give clarity around the messages that are coming on from off the field to on the field. And we haven't always had those as streamlined as we'd like. Munster at Thomond Park could be viewed as a daunting task. You've been there 2 years ago. You might have thought that you pinched it right at the death. In terms of the task at hand and how Munster have been this year, how do you view that task? Great venue, and a really exciting venue, one we do enjoy going there. In our record over the last 5-6 years there, it's been reasonably good. We've gone there, we've performed, we've won games, we've drawn games, and we've lost a couple. And I think we can take some excitement from the fact we do enjoy these sort of challenges. Understand, again, we've got to put a few performance measures in place that are better than we've been recently, but embrace that challenge. Huge admiration for what Munster have done this year. A coaching team that obviously all got onto the same page. They understand the strands of how they all work together, and paying due respect to Anthony Foley, who's done some great work over the years, and I think they've acknowledged they've brought everything together, and that's helped underpin it. and they'll be desperate for the trophy. So it's something, you know, we've really got to, you know, come to the fore, especially early in the game, you know, where you've got to try and set a certain tone to how you play. And like I said before, where you keep Munster out, you know, you've got to perhaps take away any momentum they can get around your half, the 22 in particular. So there's ways and means that we're putting together to try and do that. You know, but hopefully we can go there and perform as we've done a few times in the past. The semi you mentioned a couple of years ago, we actually didn't perform well that day. It was a scruff-field game. We stayed in the fight, and we did take it to the last 5-10 minutes. You know, in terms of spirit alone, really. And you know, I think that's perhaps something to reference. But it's a, you know, different sort of year and an away semi that we can really have a go at.
And great, Griff, that there are 2 Welsh regions involved, and who knows, there might yet be a Welsh final.
Yeah, I think you've got to have ambition. We've certainly got that this weekend, and certainly the Scarlets, speaking to them and seeing how they performed and the momentum they've got. You know, we're probably in different places, but at the same point in terms of semi, you go away from home, and you know, in different ways, I think we'll both apply ourselves, you know, to the best we can be. You know, hopefully that'll for both of us be good enough on the day. You know, we're playing 2 high-performing sides also, and recognise the couple of best sides in Europe. It's a challenge, but you know, we're damn excited about it.
We've quite a hefty injury list for the Scarlets. Have you got any boys coming back at the non-England?
People like Beck and Brian Majority, they're in and around the group. You know, there's always a couple of niggles around young players, but you know, they're the couple to add to Alan Wynne. You know, hopefully be in the mix, and Sam Davis also, you know, took full part in training today. So no, there's a little bit of boys to refresh and come back in, I suppose. But regardless of who goes out there, we've got, you know, faith and trust. Regardless of recent results in the 23, they'll go there. You know, I think they'll really perform and, you know, do ourselves justice, which, you know, I think we need to after the recent block.
You mentioned Munster there, and that emotion that's going to be there at Thomond Park. That's something you're going to really have to fight against, isn't it? You know, the Thomond Park factor, especially with what's happened this year.
Yeah, certainly. And as I said, I think it's the rugby itself is a tough enough product that they put together. It's a complete power game in many ways that you've got in the gates, and said we've got to be smart in how we deal with that and how and where we play the game. But also then, if you do that efficiently, you can try and not turn the crowd, because they're the great crowd, and I know from experience they'll back those shirts in red right to the last. But you know, you've almost got to try and, you know, change the swirl of the game really, and said we can't do something 100 miles an hour all the time, so we've got to be comfortable in our own skin around the tempo and where, you know, we can take things away from them also.
People will be looking at individual battles, obviously that 1 and 9, you hear which one, you see that as an integral part of the game, and Marie Webb sort of deal with it.
I think, you know, both sides, you know, rely on their 9s to, you know, set the sort of flow of their play. You know, for us sometimes it's the momentum of our play and how we come off 9. You know, Munster slightly different, perhaps some of the kick mindset, and Conor Murray's as good as anyone in the business of the kick game. You know, and I think likewise, you know, we're quite comfortable tactically where we can use our 9 to be a good kicking exponent for us. So their execution on the day and how teams pressure them or protect them, you know, does become important. But I think it's more for us so around the strands of the team, you know, how our half-backs connect to the outside backs, how our line-out caller connects to our outside half in terms of how we run, what calls and where, and be clear around, you know, sources of pressure. There'll be huge pressure points coming this weekend, and we've got to deal with them more comfortably.
In terms of looking back to that Scarlets, it was highlighted that perhaps your kicking game wasn't quite there. Is that something you've looked at since then? Yeah,
we have. Yeah, again, I don't feel the need to go into too much detail with respect, but you know, the kicking game wasn't there. It's probably a nice way to put it, because actually we went 23-10 down and we didn't kick. You know, and part of that is, you know, shows some of the problems we had in terms of when we then, you know, put ourselves on the back foot with turnovers, or if we did kick from the wrong positions, then yeah, defensively we were out of sync, and has been a huge point of reference for us.